those times when I do feel weak or have to call in for work, or maybe am unable to teach a yoga class, those are very humbling moments that sometimes worry me that I'm not as strong as I want to be, as strong as I hope to be, and as strong as I feel like maybe I need to be. Hi, my name is Eric Casper. I'm 45. I live in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. I was first diagnosed with cancer in January 2023. EAML, epithelioid angiomyolipoma. Some doctors also call it PEComa. Since my diagnosis, life has been stressful, and I think more for my wife than anything. She really takes on the stress of the cancer and the treatment, but it's also been eye-opening to maybe savor the little things that before diagnosis maybe were taken for granted. It came on very quickly. I was actually doing a presentation on a Thursday night. I came home, went to bed. I started feeling some abdominal and lower back pain throughout the night. And by the time I woke up on Friday morning, I had a hard time getting out of bed. My wife, luckily, talked me into going to the ER. Everybody thought it was a kidney stone, and they did a scan to see if it was a kidney stone, and they found a tumor on my kidney about the size of a grapefruit. So how long it had been there, I don't know. No really previous symptoms. It was really just by luck that we ended up finding the tumor. After they found the tumor from that first scan, they did a couple more scans. They admitted me to the hospital immediately. Per the scans, they showed the tumor not only connected to the kidney, but also part of the heart. And so their diagnosis was not really knowing if it was cancerous or not. Their goal was to get it out as fast as possible. And they actually opened the ER. They got a group together over the weekend when typically the ER is closed. So I had the whole place to myself. They had a nephrologist, a cardiologist in there to remove the tumor. They actually sent the tumor off to the Cleveland Clinic. My local hospital here in Oklahoma City was unfamiliar with that type of tumor. But after that, everything kind of happened quickly. I had the surgery within a couple days after being admitted. They sewed me up, and I recovered in the hospital for about a week. They sent me on my way, and it took me about a couple months to recover at home. My local hospital, their goal was just to get the tumor out. They kind of sent me on my way. Again, the tumor was sent to the Cleveland Clinic. I got the diagnosis back from the Cleveland Clinic, but I did not understand it. And at the time, I actually did not have an oncologist. I did not have a nephrologist. I didn't have any doctors to actually tell me what my diagnosis was. I came back 3 months later after my surgery. They did a scan and found nothing. And so I went on about my life as if I was cancer-free. It wasn't until about a year later that I ended up in the hospital for something else. And while there, we finally asked if we could be referred to an oncologist. And that was last year in 2024, around the summertime. The first thing we did was a scan. They came back from the scan and showed that the cancer had metastasized into my abdomen. And that was kind of the first step of doing an actual biopsy, learning about PEComa and how rare the cancer was. And so, again, my diagnosis was very interesting because we went a full year and a half really without knowing anything about the cancer at all. I got a phone call actually from the nurse, and you could hear the fear in her voice when she was telling me that the CT scan had showed some nodules in my abdomen. She told me the next step was to get a biopsy to see if it was the same cancer that I had before. And about a day or two later, the hospital called, and this was my local hospital here in Oklahoma City. They called and said they decided not to take on my case because it was too rare. They didn't feel comfortable doing a biopsy. And so they recommended me to MD Anderson in Houston. At the time, I did not want to travel to Houston from Oklahoma City for financial reasons, for time reasons. And at this point, no one could even tell me if what was in my abdomen was actually cancer and if it was the same type of cancer. My wife then reached out to OU here locally, the Stevenson Cancer Center, and they immediately took on my case. They were excited to have a rare case of PEComa. The tumor board actually met for the entire hospital to discuss my case. They brought me on, they did the biopsy, they did the labs there here at OU. They did tell me that it was PEComa, and that was kind of the first time that somebody explained to me what PEComa was or what EAML was and how rare it was, and especially how rare it was in a male of my age. And I think that was the first time that reality hit that I would likely be dealing with cancer for the rest of my life. We met with 3 different oncology groups at OU and finally ended up deciding that chemo was the best option. So I started chemo in December of 2024. My treatment is 2 weeks on, 1 week off. So once a week for the first 2 weeks, I go in for chemo. It's about a 3-hour process. And on week 3, I get a week off for my body to kind of recover and recuperate. The main symptoms I experience with the particular chemo drug I'm on, number 1 is mouth sores. It's attacking the soft tissues in my body, and so especially after the second round, eating can be difficult. Just the sores in the mouth can be quite painful. There is some nausea. I've had some rashes where my body is quite itchy all the time, sometimes very physically noticeable. The great thing is I still have my hair. So that was always a worry, and you see so many cancer patients lose their hair. Maybe I'm thinning a little bit, but I still have a head of hair. So other than that, the symptoms haven't really been as drastic as I've seen other patients experience with their chemo treatments. I want to say I've had 8 full cycles, so that would be 16 rounds of chemo. After we started chemo and got onto the cycle and got into this year of 2025, I did actually decide to go down to MD Anderson. They're very skilled at rare cancers, and especially the cancer I have. They have some of the top doctors in the world that have worked with this cancer. And so I've been going down to see them, and they've done a lot of their own tests. But I'm continuing my treatment at OU because it is local. The local doctors here at OU basically have told me that chemo is kind of my forever plan, as long as it's keeping the cancer at bay or even shrinking it. As long as it works, they'll continue to use it. The doctors at MD Anderson, my recent CT scan showed that the cancer is slightly shrinking. And so MD Anderson is thinking about moving to radiation to see if maybe they can actually fully eradicate the cancer, which would be a very rare case. I think there's probably been less than 5 cases of this cancer that have actually been fully cured. So fingers crossed. My mindset with this cancer has really been acceptance. And I think a lot of people, including my wife, my family, my friends, they don't understand that I have a smile on my face and kind of just being acceptant of what it is. My goal through this whole process, once we started chemo and are continuing chemo and possibly other treatments in the future, is to just continue my daily routine. I'm currently sitting in my office, so I am continuing to work full time. I also teach yoga as a part-time job and continue to do that. The physical aspect for me is very important. There are times I get down, I think, especially when some of the side effects really hit hard. And I've noticed I'm a lot more tired. I sleep more. I also enjoy longer showers and just have noticed that the pace of life has slowed down. Part of that worries me, especially for my wife. I want to continue to remain strong. So those times when I do feel weak or have to call in for work or maybe am unable to teach a yoga class, those are very humbling moments that sometimes worry me that I'm not as strong as I want to be, as strong as I hope to be, and as strong as I feel like maybe I need to be. I think the physical aspect, everybody experiences it when they're on some sort of a treatment. I personally lost about 35 pounds once I've started this treatment. So for me, being in the yoga studio is important. I used to do more physical gym workouts like Orange Theory and, HIIT type of stuff, but my body just can't quite handle the high intensity and it takes a long time to recover. Luckily, yoga has been a part of my life for almost a decade. I've been teaching for almost 9 years. And so I have found that, especially after my surgery, the first thing I wanted to do physically was to get back on the mat, get back in the studio and just start moving around and feeling the body. And I think making that a priority and making sure that I'm showing up and doing my physical practice, even if it's just a couple times a week, keeps that level of strength to help me, again, just continue to stay on routine, continue to be able to not just let cancer take over and give up and, sit at home and just get lazy. So yoga has definitely been a very important factor and continues to be an important factor in my physical life. As far as coping mechanisms, I think a lot of it is just the local support, obviously from my wife, from my family, from my friends. Actually, I've had a lot of people reach out to me to ask to help, and I'm that kind of person that's like, no, I don't need help. Like, we're doing just fine. We can handle this. I actually, the interview I was supposed to have with Taylor a couple weeks ago, I know she had to cancel. I would have had to cancel too because I was actually in the hospital. I got a really nasty virus that put me in there for a week, and I had to miss a couple of my yoga classes that I teach every week. And I don't rarely miss teaching a yoga class. The yoga studio again was like, can we please help? And so we finally said yes. They actually started a GoFundMe yesterday. It's almost raised $10,000 in less than 2 days. And so that kind of support is very humbling. But knowing that I have a community that continues to support me like that is a lot. And so it means a lot, and it's kind of overwhelming sometimes, but it's a true blessing. For this type of cancer, it's tough, especially here at OU where I'm doing my treatment. I am the only patient with this cancer. I am the only patient that's taking this very specific drug that is the only FDA-approved drug in the U.S. for this specific cancer. So it's been challenging there, not really being able to communicate with other patients to see kind of their. But my wife recently found a PEComa group on Facebook. And it's a worldwide group. There's not a lot of people in there because there aren't a lot of patients, but it's been a good group for both me and my wife, especially for her, I think, to reach out to other caregivers to see their experience. And it's a good group of people really talking about their side effects, what different drugs they've tried. Some of them are new to the cancer, new to treatment. Some of them have been doing it for many, many, many years. And so having that group, even though it's small, is nice to know and nice to hear other people's experiences with this specific cancer. When I first went into the hospital and we did a Cancer 101 class, and they give you this whole list of support groups, and like none of them I was like in any of those categories, and they were just like, well, this is what we have. And so that Facebook group has kind of been the only outlet to this point. You're special. I think that's what people tell me. They're like, of course, Eric, you had to be the one to go and get this like ultra crazy rare cancer. But at the end of the day, it's still just cancer. And I think the technology that we have in the world, the doctors that we have around, I think, cancer isn't as scary as it used to be. And I think just hearing other people's stories, seeing other people's stories, that this is something that you can live with. And I'm a believer, which is hard when you have a rare cancer. There's not a lot of testing. There's not a lot of research because the large companies, it's just not beneficial for them to put time and money into a cancer that they're not going to see many cases on a yearly basis. But we do have some doctors that are now really spending time on some of these rare cancers, and I believe that in my lifetime that we're going to find a cure. And so I think that would be my advice, is just to, stay positive, to know that there are a lot of people out there working on this. There are also a lot of people out there like me that are going through this. And I think our experiences are going to lead to a cure. And it'll just be another cancer that's curable. So that's my belief, I hope. What I have found out about this cancer and with the group that I'm a part of is this cancer actually typically occurs in females, and it starts in their reproductive areas. And so it's been a challenge to actually talk to males who have this cancer. I think I've only talked to 2 of them. They're both in Europe, so it's been interesting. You talk to doctors that you feel like an experiment. So, but that's okay. I think I have the benefit of being younger, of being healthy, and I'm okay being that experiment if it leads to a cure for somebody else in the future.